Hey ratbags, it's Jade. Today giving you my thoughts and impressions of Grounded's final content update. Yes, it really is the final content update. I think people should go and check out the last dev stream they did on Twitch with the Grounded Obsidian devs to really see and hear the devs speaking about really this is it. It's not going to be a Terraria situation where it's just going to go on and on and on with new content. This is it. There will be quality of life, there will be changes and balance passes, and maybe a few events that we'll see that we know have already been stripped away from the full game, like the St. Patrick's Day event for the Lucky Hat, as well as a Valentine's event that probably should have come out but maybe got cancelled. Anywho, bottom line, is this update worth it? Does it match up to old-time Grounded players' expectations? And what does it mean for new players beginning a journey into the yard? Bearing in mind, Obsidian are going to do a lot of balance changes, I'm sure, over the coming weeks. They often do really look at the feedback that they get given from players, and they often respond and balance it in the right way. That said, I can only review what's in front of me, and I've got to say, at first glance, it really does feel like they didn't spend enough time checking the ramifications of each new game plus and really making sure that things were a gentle, nice slope rather than just hit you in the face, here you go, the game's super hard now. So let's dive into it. Basically, New Game Plus is a great idea. I think for Grounded it fits perfectly, and I think for a lot of hardcore Grounded players this is definitely going to give them something to aim for and do, and prolong and give them a lot more items, a lot more gear, a lot more time spent in one of their favourite games. New Game Pluses are often for that hardcore player. It's not meant to be that accessible for every casual. And for sure, the moment I started running around in New Game Plus 1, I was like, damn, okay, I cannot go and just defeat any bug or insect I want now with relatively the similar or same gear. I'm going to have to relearn the game, go back to always making sure I've got a weapon of kind of every candy element and maybe every type, just in case I run into an infused bug or creature and I really am going to need that extra damage output. And in that respect, it was pretty fun. I mean, not amazing getting owned by every bug going. Obviously, the base creatures have all had a boost as well to health and damage. And I'm absolutely convinced we'll see some sort of balance pass, as the majority of bugs in my runs, at least in New Game Plus 1, all had explosive damage as their attribute, their bonus one, on top of the static ones that all infused bugs have. And that's where we run straight into an issue or problem I've got. There's not many ways to combat that. They've added a brand new infected ant shield that is meant to help and do that job. But it pretty much feels like it's almost unavoidable that you're going to die every time you run into an insect that's got this, unless you retreat and use range combat. Looking into the game files, I think it does about 50 damage, and that's quite a lot considerably, and it seems to be, or seems more, given that you've got the base attack from a lot of these insects as well. So a lot of times it might only take like one hit from a strong enemy, or maybe only slightly 2 hits from a weaker one, and yeah, you are brown bread blown to bits. But the shield that we get given, if you take the right steps, and admittedly only until you get to New Game Plus have you got a chance of getting it, I just think we need more. We need more trinkets, we need more armor sets. The Infected Broodmother armor set gives you more bonuses with your explosive damage, but it doesn't necessarily protect you against explosive damage, and it just seems unfair. I don't mind hard, I don't mind having to relearn and, like I said, have the right weapons on me and the upgrade and try and grind and get the stuff that we need. But when you're literally getting one-shotted by an uncontrollable explosion that sometimes with some enemies seems to trigger very, very abruptly or weirdly, that's not particularly fun. And in my run, nearly every bug had this. Bosses were a bit different. They had a bit more choice in the buffs and debuffs of what they had, whether it be like venom added and other stuff. But pretty much in New Game Plus 1, unless it's a bug, just the majority of creatures all had pretty much the explosions. I can't remember coming across one single one that wasn't a boss that didn't have the explosive damage. So already it's making like the remix yards not seem that remixed if there's that predictability. Either go and really make sure that every bug is absolutely different, or if you're gonna absolutely insist on having the bomb being like the first one for the majority of the bugs, give us something to counter it. Something we can earn for sure, but something we can actually use in New Game Plus 1. And it's a big criticism, and I probably am going to dog out a little bit Grounded devs here, something I never really do unless it's really constructive, but I'll always add that constructiveness to it. The armor. I can't believe they've done New Game Plus without the ability to upgrade armor sets. It seems so simple and such an easy win, and something I just don't see how it went past QA. Like, you can upgrade your weapons up to level 15, but you can't increase the power of your armors to deal with these types of creatures, especially when you get to the point where some of these creatures are going to have 10 new attributes on them. The idea is that you're meant to go and get the milk molars, right? And if you increase your health that way, then you might stand more of a chance. But that does mean going searching for random ones. And some of these milk molars aren't appearing in places you can actually harvest them. Some are under the water, not the ones that you could just take a soggy route away to get, but actually fully there that you can't use your hammer, or some are even off the map or in places you just can't reach. I would genuinely prefer if they didn't have random milk molars, but they gave us the option to go ahead and upgrade. There's too much randomness in the update as well, and I'm going to get into this with the trinkets and stuff. It seems to be a big focus, and the Grounded devs must really love the idea of customizing your build, and I've always loved that as well. Grounded's got some amazing armor sets, some amazing weapons, and unlike a lot of games where it feels like you have to have this particular set, as you progress through each stage of the yard, it really does feel like you can mix it up and go for a ranger class, you can go for a dagger class, you can go for a poison build. There have been some metas for sure that have come and gone and been nerfed or buffed a little bit better, but they're usually so good at giving us choice. Now, we've got lots of choice, but we have also got a ton of randomness now that we have to deal with. And I guess it's the second big criticism. We don't get the chance to earn these amazing fused daggers and weapons until New Game Plus 4. And I feel like this should have been there at the start. This should have been a drop that we can get by defeating bosses. Maybe increase the damage a little bit in each stage that you go up. But give us the juice first. Give us something to keep fighting the bosses in New Game Plus 1. And take it from there to go harder and harder. The fact that you've got to complete the game 4 times, literally, to gain access to some of the funnier or more interesting weapons, now that they can be pretty much a pebblet dagger, but still have the power of a Black Widow dagger. I really like that. I love that aspect. I'm so glad they've added that. But the idea as well that we've got random attributes dropping with these weapons, I just feel like it's kind of making us farm bosses, and I can see the longevity of it. But with so many New Game Pluses to play through now, I kind of like the idea more that we can choose what we want on our weapons. And I feel like it's a misstep not being able to upgrade our weapons and put an attribute on it that we really want. It's a gameplay loop, right? That's the whole idea. Lots of, I would say, roguelikes and stuff like that. You have to repeat doing certain things or take on certain bosses and creatures to aim and get your best gear and roll it. And that's what it's about. Dungeons and Dragons, it's such a big theme throughout Grounded. I totally get where they're going with it in terms of you might get lucky, you roll the dice. It is a huge part of the underlying system to Grounded. When you start combining the randomness of sometimes getting certain drops from creatures and trinkets and having to re-roll them, and then the weapons being kind of underpowered, it just becomes a bit tedious. New Game Pluses are there for literally the hardcore fan, but you kind of do want them to appeal to more casuals. You do want people to play them. You don't want it to be just this 5% of the player base. You want it to expand and draw people into maybe experience New Game Pluses for the first time, something they've never done in other games, especially since Grounded is a pretty young focused game. But this is definitely putting people off. Certain things are too hard, absolutely, and it's just a case of getting good. I don't mind the Java-matic being difficult. I put a short up asking people what they thought, and I had big trouble when I was trying to do it legit, no cheating or anything, just really doing it on live stream. And it took me 3 or 4 tries, and you know what? I can live with that. That's how it's meant to be until you work out to use more walls, put more defenses up, make sure your weapons are a bit more upgraded. And likewise, once you buy into the upgrade system and you start getting hold of the necessary materials, the fusion crystals to upgrade your tools and weapons, they quickly become quite powerful, and you'll be taking on bugs and creatures just like you normally do, except the random chance of them blowing you up. But the grind for the fusion crystals is pretty ridiculous. You need a ton of these fusion crystals to max out just one weapon, and it costs so much to go ahead and make them. And it's ridiculous how much of this stuff you're going to need. You need a ton of the ooze, you need a ton of the deduper jelly, and it's just not fun. It's just not making me want to go ahead and mess around with different builds and upgrade and basically unlock any of the new weapons, because I don't want to waste my time. I'm totally not going to bother upgrading an older weapon to looking for the upgrade rocks when I know I should be just concentrating purely on infused bugs so that I can hurry up and get my older weapons upgraded. And it means that I'm bypassing all the new ones. So this kind of stuff, I am whinging, totally get it. but I reckon a lot of this will be balanced. I'll be very surprised if Obsidian don't reduce the cost somewhere or give us extra ways. As you progress through New Game Plus, it does get better. You will find that a lot of the infused bugs start dropping more of the ooze. And I guess like a lot of hard, tough games on New Game Plus it is meant to be challenging at the beginning. And then as you persevere and you grind against it, you get that reward eventually. And I can see why the grounded devs want that. But I've also think they've forgotten their player base here. It is mostly younger kids and people, and they're great at playing games like this, much better than me for sure. But I don't know if they're also going to have the attention span to stick with it and just keep upgrading and playing this kind of kids-like Dark Souls that Grounded has suddenly become. On paper, it sounds great. How can we make sure that people have got something to play while we go and build out Grounded 2 or whatever their next project is? No DLC, nothing like that's incoming for Grounded, but we kind of know that they're probably going to be working on the sequel since it's now a big franchise according to Microsoft. So let's give them replayability. Everyone's complaining that they don't get enough rewards from defeating bosses. Why don't we give them some unique weapons? Why don't we add some new weapons as well, variations? Because people are always complaining that they want a Cortana, but they want it in a different type of candy element. And all that stuff is good. I know it's getting a bit of a bad rep at the moment with a lot of the candy variants being pretty much the same. Like there's no need to buy both fresh axes because they do exactly the same type of damage, exactly the same abilities. I definitely would like to see a bit more variation in them, like the Frost Flake and the Fresh Edge. Like just put something different on one of them. They are meant to be exactly the same counterparts as previous weapons and axes and stuff. So I realise I can't change too much in that, but certainly perks wise, it would be nice if there was just some subtle differences. Otherwise, no one is ever going to play with anything other than the Frosted Axe because it's goated and it's the probably only one you need out of the first 2 tier sets. And then maybe if you're just bored and you want to mess around getting some of the others, that's something you can do, especially when you factor in how much it costs for these fusion crystals to go ahead and upgrade. To be clear, I do need to spend time with it. I did run around legit for about 5 hours in my live stream and just off camera. Then I did some guides and obviously I used some of my cheats in creative mode and playgrounds mode. Then I've gone back in, I've done the more live streams. So I've had a bit of a mix. I definitely want to sit down and put some good amount of time with my character that's been kind of waiting around for this update. But you don't need a billion hours in it to work out that some things just are really unbalanced at the moment. I've also got to say it's a bit weird having this update when you're just launching on new platforms. Like it makes sense, it's the last update and you're about to launch on new platforms, you're about to do physical copy editions, but you've got this weird mix of players that you're going to have new from PlayStation and Switch, wondering how to play the game, and everyone's talking about the endgame content and spoiling it. And it just sucks really in that respect. And I'm someone that does regularly do spoilers and probably ruins it for a lot of people if you're scrolling through YouTube. But it just feels a bit off. Like it feels like this update should have come a few months before and then released the PlayStation and Switch updates. I would have really liked to have seen some new mutations added or the ability to gain a mutation slot every level or every 2 levels of New Game Plus. This would have helped alleviate and helped us create some more builds where we're more protected with explosive damage. And it kind of would have been cool seeing a lot of the attributes from the bugs rise, but we had something to counter it. Maybe it could have been unlocked by defeating bosses or, like I said, just New Game Plus, give us an extra slot. And I don't want to be here nitpicking. Like I said, I think some of this might change with balance passes, but there's no real reward or incentive for going beyond New Game Plus 4. Like, okay, I've moaned that they've put some stuff at New Game Plus 4, like the infused weapons. Why couldn't you move that to 1? But that doesn't mean I didn't want anything at 4, like swap things around a little bit, sure. Which they're never going to do now, by the way. It's already too late because they didn't have a PTB. That's also another thing that kind of sucks. We could have got a lot of this data and feedback to them. Something they've always been amazing at taking because they've done it properly. They've got so many great social channels to take all this board. But what is the point of playing beyond New Game Plus 4? Like, okay, you'll have one more round, I guess, with your new infused weapons, maybe trying to farm and get more of them. But you probably can do that in New Game Plus 4 when it's slightly still easier. And as it goes further and further, it's just the player base is going to get smaller and smaller that are going to keep playing this. Obsidian have done such a good job of adding replayability to the game. I think Playgrounds is still an amazing idea, even if the timing for it just wasn't amazing, maybe didn't capture everyone's attention like it could have. I'm convinced now with the PlayStation and Switch versions that will change as long as they can keep on top of the performance and the build limits and stuff. They've added replayability in other ways, like the boss fights, and we've added extra content that have fleshed out the game more, like mixers and raid defences, optional bosses, optional dungeons, and I know so many players wanted more of that type of content, but it is what it is. They can't fit any more into the game. They've said they've got to keep in mind it's running now on the Switch, Xbox One and PS4s, which are at this point like, what, 10 years old nearly? I'm very much looking forward to Grounded 2. I'll be there all the way with them, hyping it up and delivering what I've always done. But in trying to add replayability to the game, it does feel like they've catered just a bit too much to this tiny fraction of the Grounded population that play this way or that want this type of content. And I'm not sure what else they could have really done. Like I said, they could have just made things a bit more replayable, made a gentler curve to keep people playing New Game Pluses a bit longer, maybe keep adding more rewards to New Game Plus 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then at least the hardcore are really happy that they're earning something each time. Grounded's got a pretty good combat system when you really view it against other criteria and other games, especially in the survival genre, and players love the combat mechanics. There's already creators and people out there doing New Game Plus 6 and 7. Fair play to them, they are amazing. But I think it's missing a trick in having it so balanced at the moment where it's just not really that interesting going around gathering the same rocks, the same kind of process that we've done for a lot of other bugs, a lot of other creatures, a lot of the whole game. And it's a core part of the game, you can't really change that now. But they could have mixed up a bit more, like give us some more new mutations, give us the ability to add attributes to our weapons. Let us break down stuff for science, even if it's just weapons and armor pieces, not actual resources, so that we can get rid of just junk gear that we're not going to use anymore. Let us use that at the D-Drooper to go ahead and get raw science. Make teleporters a reward at tier 1. It seems like that should be absolutely that happens, and give some of the other stuff at tier 2. I know it might be a lot trying to swap stuff around, and eventually you're going to be like, well, we want everything at tier 1 of New Game Plus. But it definitely feels like the teleporters should have been there straight away too. And please reduce the price of teleporters. I don't want zip lines in my game. I've never liked them. Let me go instantly, which I really love, by the way. It's almost seamless. It's probably one of the best additions Grounded's had in since 1.0. I just want it a little bit earlier. Some things I do like the trinkets unlocking with the sausage jar, and where you can basically keep re-rolling your trinkets and get the right attributes. But we sorely need a pouch bag for only trinkets now, because if you really want to have some fun with them, you want to take 2 or 3 out at least, and then you're taking up valuable space in your bag. It's a great idea having more attributes on just one trinket, and I like the way that you got to grind for it, I do have to say. But on top of all the other randomness in the game with the infused weapons and just the low chance of getting certain things, I just feel like it's all just become a bit too much based on luck, rather than actually skill and reward. Good old management speak coming now, but have you ever heard of the compliment sandwich? Always when you're about to deliver some critical feedback, try and give something good at the start and something good at the end. I probably missed out a little bit at the beginning there. I am really surprised they went to these lengths with this final update. It's definitely more than I imagined. And when you view it from a fresh player, someone that's never played Grounded, and hearing it's got New Game Plus in it, you can keep playing it over and over again, unlocking all new rewards, people that aren't jaded by years of playing every single update and know every single bit of it, I can see it appealing for sure. I love the fact they've added in the Ant Queens. It kind of feels like it's completing a missing part of the game, with it being so centric about ants. They're the creature we see the most of, depending, well, whatever actual set we see. Red ant, fire ant, black ant. Spending all that time, a lot of the time at least, in some of these burrows and then never seeing Mama Queen. It's perfect. I love it. I'm not sad at all that it isn't a boss fight. We knew it was in the game files, and apparently you could even spawn them in if you're mother's chudders, but I think it's good to have something different. You don't want just another boss fight that we're just going to parry and beat our way through. It's interesting to have these choices, and something Obsidian have done for years in their games, and I really like this aspect. I love that it's got lasting effects, being a friend to them, poisoning them, or infecting them. The cosmetic changes to the yard are good as well, but I feel like it could have been pushed even further, like change even more. It would have been dope to see the kids get new haircuts or new clothing items, just something a little bit different with them, but I do realise all of this would take work away from whatever they're doing next. And the decor items and stuff they're doing, it just seems really good. And the fact that we've got crossplay, cross progression, something so many games don't do, and I feel so many Grounded fans take for granted. I'm going off kilter a bit now, not talking just about New Game Plus, but this update does obviously bring in the PlayStation and Switch family. I've got to test out the Switch version. I haven't bought it. I've got my collector's edition coming in December, so by then it'll be too late, and I really don't want to pony up. I can have a guess that it's probably not going to be the best way to play. I'm a bit sad there's so many new limitations with like the build limits and not being able to host the world and other players join you. Or the advice is that you should certainly play on other people's worlds if you're playing crossplay and they've got PlayStation or Xbox or PC. But this is one of them. It's cool to see your game on Switch, and if it runs 90% good, then that's just about okay. But I haven't actually seen much. I've just only seen a few reports from people saying that, yeah, it's not exactly that amazing at the moment. But that's something I've got to test myself or look up a lot more gameplay. The PS5 version at least runs like a dream, exactly like the Xbox Series X. I've been live streaming brand new beginner guides, and it's great, it's good. Really sensitive with the haptic controls, very different when you're playing with it. I'm going to have to work out a way to make it not so sensitive, because literally I'm blocking and attacking all the time by accident. Didn't do much with the touchpad. I thought might be some sort of crazy cool stuff might be able to do with it a little bit. I mean, it's only a small little touchpad, just basically replacing the start and select buttons. But I think it is amazing. A game of Grounded stature can add crossplay and that kind of stuff. Cross progression. I've already booted up my save from PC and I've transferred it over to PlayStation by sharing my world. So I can carry on playing, which is fantastic. Especially again if you're on Switch and you don't mind, you're just going to be running around gathering some resources or not getting involved too much in certain stuff. So yeah, hats off to Obsidian and I guess Papa Microsoft for allowing them to do it. Whatever the reason, whether they needed money for Activision's coffers to pony up buying it, or just because they really wanted to get the game out to other players and make Grounded the franchise it's always should have been. Grounded is a great concept, more players deserve to play it, and the fact now that hopefully other people are, it's going to build up hype and excitement for Grounded 2, which I'm convinced 100% is happening. Animated TV show still to come, lots of quality of life updates I'm sure, and balance changes I'm pretty guaranteed will happen, and maybe some more event stuff. I'm not going to be disappearing straight away from Grounded. I'm definitely going to get through a New Game Plus 1. I ain't going to lie though, I don't know how much I could do like a Let's Play series beyond New Game Plus 1, because I just don't really want to do that grind unless a few things change. But let me know your thoughts and opinions. What are you feeling about New Game Plus? Have you reached it yet? Are you still fairly new to the game? What do you like? What don't you like? Make sure you pop it in the comments constructively, and I'll see you ratbags later.